Guys, this is Matthew, or Mr. J, and this is an episode of Fanboy JunKtion. This particular episode, I'm going to be doing my top 10 list of comic book movies. These are theatrical release movies based on comic books that I think are the best. Now, you can agree, disagree, comment below, email me, and tell me I'm an idiot if you think I'm an idiot, or whatever. I don't care. Let me, of course, start off my top 10 with saying what is, to me, not only the worst comic book movie in the world, but probably, I would dare say, the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. And that is Batman and Robin. Surprise, surprise. That movie is it's just horrible. It's just straight up horrible. How anybody in the production of that movie watched that film and said, yeah, let's release this, is beyond me. Nothing against George Clooney. He probably did what the director told him, but the movie was just awful. Just straight up awful. Well, with that being said, let's go ahead and start our list. Now, of course, I'm going to go from 10 to 1. 10 being, on there. Going there. Now, of course, people who have watched the show know that I love me some Captain America. But the problems I've mentioned before with the first Captain America movie has kind of kept it off this list. I would love for it to have been there, but didn't see the crazy, awesome fighting ability that I wanted to see. Very rushed just so he could be an Avenger. So because of that, it's not on my top 10. Just to get it out there in case people are wondering, love Captain America, why is it on the list? That's why. So, now we're going to start. So if you'll excuse me if I'm looking over to the left because I've kind of written my list and I want to make sure I'm referencing and hitting the points so everybody can, debate whatever. All right, number 10 is Superman, starring Christopher Reeve. Yes, it's an older film. Yes, it's kind of outdated, but you know what? That was just a great movie. Christopher Reeve did an amazing job of being not only Superman, but Clark Kent. And you could physically see where he was Clark Kent or when he was Superman. I mean, it was completely different. Even with as outdated as it is, it definitely has kind of that 70s cheese factor, but the story works. And he is just amazing as Superman. You can just see the stalwart, you can see the hope, you can just see how good he is. A lot of the emotions were there in his origin. Just the performances, Gene Hackman in that. And though even as a young kid, I wasn't sure if I really thought Margot Kidder was attractive or not. You could tell she was in love with Superman. You could tell he was in love with her. I mean, there was just chemistry across the board. Given that it was 30, 40 years ago when they did this movie, I watched that movie and then watched something like Superman Returns, and even with the computer graphics, the flying wasn't even any better. I mean, I don't know how they managed to get the flying to work, but it did. You believed the man could fly. You believed Christopher Reeve was Superman. So across the board, I love this movie. It is number 10. Number 9, really kind of it was a favorite book of mine. If I think pretty soon here I'm going to do like some books that I like, so suggestions for you to read, and it's on that list, and that is The Crow. I really did enjoy this movie. It definitely had a kind of weird twist since Brandon Lee had died making that movie. To see him in the movie after he had died a year later kind of was a harrowing legacy to things he was talking about in some of his interviews for that movie. But all in all, it wasn't true to the book, but the film itself was true to itself. I like the dark gothicness of it. I think Brandon Lee was definitely on a path for bigger and better things. His performance in that was incredible. And all the characters, they were with the weird names, Top Dollar, Tintin, the Skank, whatever. All those guys there, I think, added to it, and you just kind of had that. They were so evil and so just disrespectful and against authority, and just kind of how you watch it now and you're like, yeah, there's people out there that are like that. And if they were out there and they did the things to me that happened to Eric Draven, you want to be able to take vengeance. You want to come back and avenge your wife. And there's even something of a romance in his actions, in that he loved her so much that he comes back from the dead to avenge her. I just love it. And so for that reason, The Crow is my number 9. Number 8, again, an independent comic book. Some people may not even know it's based on a comic, and that's Men in Black. I I have a good time watching this movie. I laugh every time I watch it. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones are magic on film. I'm just talking about the first one. I'm not going to comment on the others, but the first one is definitely on my top 10. I can rewatch that movie every other month. It just makes me laugh. I crack up. The humor to that, the aliens and the way they did that, and just kind of that weird, almost X Files, like we're an agency that nobody knows about, but we have to police aliens, and just like all the jokes and just the general feel of that show was just, it was incredible. It was fun. It was a lot of laughs. I can't get enough of that movie. So because of that, unlike a lot of the other films on this list, it's probably the most fun and the only comedy, really, unless you want to talk about, how funny some funny moments from the other movies. But yeah, Men in Black, number 8. Number 7 is is arguably the movie that started the comic book movie revolution, and that is Blade with Wesley Snipes. They really hadn't done. I mean, I take it back. The comic book movies had existed, Batman and Superman, but this was the first one, I think, where Marvel had a successful movie, and it was the first time where what comic book movies are now is because of Blade. Now, granted, it wasn't a mainstream comic, so you can kind of say X-Men is the first real comic book movie because people are aware that it was a comic book, whereas Blade, I mean, they changed that character so much. I mean, he was afro, brown leather jacket, little stakes across his thing. It was just ridiculous. So they completely altered that character. I mean, that Blade character is, in name alone, and that he's a black guy, is the only thing they took from that character and put in that movie. I personally think Wesley Snipes kind of said, you know what, I've been wanting to do a straight-up martial arts movie. Let me do this character. Let me do what I want. Him and David Goyer just went off and just made this great martial arts movie that happened to be based on a Marvel character. And I think it worked. I was a big fan of Wesley Snipes before he did that movie. I was excited about that movie. I was aware of Blade. I think I had read him in a couple comic books. I used to be a Ghost Rider fan back in the 90s, so I think he was around in some of that. So I was just thrilled. I thought it was great. And it really was the first, I would say, the first comic book movie that came out. I mean, one, it was rated R, but two, it really took it to a real adult audience. Some of the Batman movies, especially the later ones, kind of got a little kiddie. Superman, I love it, but it was not. It was more kind of the general hope of comics. With Blade, rated R, ultra violent, dark, ready to go. Similar to The Crow, just very dark and just serious. And I just thought it was amazing. And I don't think without Blade, without the success of Blade, I don't think you would have gotten X-Men. Which, of course, with X-Men, then you get Spider-Man. And then, of course, from there, it just explodes into what we have today as an entire genre of comic book movies. So, yes, Blade, number 7. Number 6. Number 6 is a guilty pleasure. I know that it shouldn't be this high on the list, but I just love it. I love it because of the manly action of it, and that's 300. Gerard Butler as Leonidas. It doesn't matter if the story is bad. It's like the Transformers movies. I don't want plot. I'm the Autobots. I'm Optimus Prime. We fight the Decepticons. Give me 2 hours of them fighting. I could care less what the plot is. That's 300. Guilty pleasure. Minimal plot. We are the Spartans. We will protect this section from people invading. That's it. That's all I need. I love the action. I love the way the camera moved around, the zooms in and out, the slow motion. Who doesn't watch that movie and hit the gym for the next 3 months? It just kind of, similar to something like The Crow, it just brought out a visceral in me. And then having read the comic before, it was nice. I like sometimes, depending on the subject matter of the comic book, I like when a movie is pretty much the comic book page on the screen. It worked for 300. I don't think it worked for Sin City, but it worked for 300 because of how the story was. I mean, they did some extra stuff with it, but I thought that it was just great. So for that, guilty pleasure number 6, 300. Number 5, and this is where I'm going to start reeling with some of my friends and people watching, is Batman Begins. What Christopher Nolan did with that character was simply amazing. And to me, Batman Begins is probably, so far, as of December of 2013, is the best reboot of a comic book franchise. Straight up. Incredible Hulk was an improvement over Hulk, but it didn't completely just upgrade and redo everything. And I think given what the Batman movies were in the late 80s and early 90s, Batman Begins definitely brought the character into the real world, into an up-to-date world, and added, I mean, it's a comic book movie, so it shouldn't be believable, but at the same time, it shouldn't be far-fetched. And I think that movie did a good job. Plus, I've recently got it on Blu-ray and watched it, and I'll say, starting back with Wesley Snipes and Blade, it was when people started realizing you get real actors to be in these movies. And as much as Blade was a martial arts movie, Snipes can act. As much as Men in Black was a comedy, you had to have two comedic actors who could pull it off. 300, whatever. All these movies, the acting is important, and I think a lot of comic book fans don't pay attention to that. You have to have good acting. Yes, it'd be nice if you could get actors and people to portray the characters that look exactly like they do in the comics, but let's be straight up here. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. He's a foot taller than the character is supposed to be in the comics, but it doesn't matter. He's Wolverine. So, with Batman Begins, Christian Bale makes that movie. Just the amount of acting. If you watch some of those scenes, the one that comes to my mind is when he runs into Rachel while he's walking out of the restaurant, and he's trying to tell her that he's more, and then the girls are talking, and you can just see his internal disappointment. Like, all he wants to do is tell her that he's Batman, but he's got to keep it to himself. So I thought that his acting ability in that particular movie made that movie work. And then, of course, I was mad that the Liam Neeson twist didn't hit me. I've been a comic book fan for a very long time, almost my entire life. Batman fan even more so. So the character Deckard was in his origin, so I was totally buying into Liam Neeson as Deckard. So for him to do twist and be the villain at the end completely caught me off guard. Perfect writing, great acting. The action wasn't exactly what we wanted to see from a Batman, but I enjoyed it. I thought the action was not the key element. It was more about the story and the struggle of the character, so I followed it. I liked it. So Batman Begins, number 5. Number 4 is what started the Marvel craze in the new Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's Iron Man. I recently rewatched this movie as well, and it was actually, we kind of think about Robert Downey Jr. as being funny, and he was in Avengers, and he was in Iron Man 2, but this movie was pretty dark. I mean, there was a lot of violence, especially that first half was pretty dark. And it kind of surprised me because I had forgotten about how dark that movie was. But his performance, I mean, almost as close as Hugh Jackman, this guy was born to play Iron Man. The action was there. Again, an origin story that kept it kind of in the realm of reality, had some humor. But I think everybody in that movie was great. I am a huge Jeff Bridges fan. Sometimes I just want to give him the finger because of how talented that guy is. And he was excellent as the villain. Pepper Potts, Gwyneth Paltrow was great. Terrence Howard, I mean, he was good, but I mean, him and Don Cheadle, I mean, he didn't make that movie. So whatever happened, I know he recently has gone on and talked about what happened, but you know what? Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3 are no less or more because of him being in them. So I can understand why they just kind of went, well, nope, Robert Downey Jr. makes these movies, not you, so whatever. Point being, Iron Man number 4. It was a perfect start, a perfect reboot for Marvel to start taking up some of their characters. I've been a fan of Iron Man since I was a kid as well. So I really enjoyed it. And I think that it definitely needs to be on the top of anybody's list. And that's why for me, it's number 4. Now, here's where people are really going to get mad at me. I know that this movie everybody puts, but for me, it's up there, but it's not the top. And number 3 is Avengers. Really good movie, lots of fun. No crap, it was going to make a lot of money. Every film leading up to it was successful. You didn't even have to have a trailer for this movie, and people are going to go see it because they've been following all the other characters. But my problem with the movie is this: it was very, very safe. It was Independence Day with superheroes. It was just an alien invasion story. And I kind of felt like I would have liked to have seen more. The original concept of what the movie was supposed to be, and when I watch the commentary, they talk about how there's supposed to be more animosity between Iron Man and Captain America and who's going to be the leader. I would have liked to see that. I think it was kind of there, but I just kind of. And Hawkeye, like, why was he even in the movie? Maria Hill, why was she in the movie? There's so many other characters I would have loved to see more, or at least have Hawkeye do something. In fact, make Hawkeye be Maria Hill, and at the end he jumps into the suit and goes and does something. Other than that, that character shouldn't even have been in that movie. Maria Hill, why? Get her out of here. I just kind of thought that there were so many different. There was such an opportunity to introduce more of the Marvel universe that was not even taken because they kind of had to keep it safe. They had to make it accessible to everybody, even though everybody was going to go see this movie, and obviously did because the box office did. I was kind of disappointed in that. But it's number 3, still really high up there. Not perfect. What movies are, but yeah, number 3. Number 2 on my list is there because I think it's one of, if not the most perfect movie, not even in comics, but of all time, and that is it's X-Men 2. X-Men 2 to me is just great film. I watch it, and when I watch that movie, I usually watch it from beginning to end. I don't know, you guys don't know me, but some of my friends can attest. If I watch a lot of movies, I just skip to the action scenes or the scenes I like, and then I'm done. Usually 30 minutes. But with X-Men 2, I'll put it in the DVD player and I'll watch it from beginning to end. You're not going to find deleted scenes for this movie. Everything that was in there for a reason. I mean, from the development of Jean Grey throughout the show, from Cyclops kind of doing the weird thing. Patrick Stewart is amazing as Xavier. And Magneto coming back. I wasn't really thrilled originally that he was back, but I thought he played a good element into it. Nightcrawler, the beginning of that movie with Nightcrawler doing all that. I mean, I liked Nightcrawler back when I read Excalibur. I thought he was cool, but I never even dreamed of how intense and badass he could be, bamping all over the place and taking out people. But honestly, the highlight is the assault on the school. To see Wolverine, you don't really see him lose it in the first one, but to really see how battle ready he was, and you want to shoot me? I mean, it was just great, and that's that's what we want to see in Wolverine. And you really got to see him put through the paces, but you got to see the intensity of that character, and you got to see just those guys, those characters, the X-Men were just put through their paces. They were bottom, and they just had to work and fight their way back up. I thought it kind of. I like when they take the movies and you can see the elements of the comic book stories they took. The If God Loved Man Kills storyline, some of the Weapon X stuff. I mean, they did a good job. It was obvious that whoever wrote the script really took from the source material and kind of wove it all together. So for that reason, action, intensity, homage in the comics, great action. I mean, just all over. X-Men 2 is number 2 on my list. 2, whatever. Anyway, that's where it is. Definitely above Avengers for me. Just, my opinion. And of course, some of you probably seeing this a mile away, what number 1 on my list is. Number 1 all-time comic book movie, to me, is The Dark Knight. Not only, again, similar to X-Men 2, not only a great comic book movie, but just a fantastic movie all around. It should have been nominated for Best Picture. Not saying it should have won, but it should have been nominated. Or at least Best Director should have been nominated. Not saying it should have won, but it should have been up there. I thought this movie was great. This is one of the only movies that when I finished watching in the theater, I literally sat, and at the time I was doing like a lot of independent films and thinking I was going to do something, whatever. But I just thought, I'm done. I'm never going to do a movie that great. I'm never going to do a movie that intense. And I like intense movies. Miami Vice intensity, why not? So for that reason, The Dark Knight. You got a brilliant performance, of course, from Heath Ledger. Everybody, Gary Oldman brought it. Christian Bale there. I can't remember his name. The guy who played Two-Face. It was across the board great. I thought that, yeah, I'll admit, a little bit too much going on in the story, so it was a little bit longer than it should have been. But I'll forgive it because of performance, because of how intense that movie was. I mean, you get to a point where, for me, when I watch it, most movies I watch, and I go, oh, I know what's going to happen. I know where this is going to go. I know where this is going to go. Oh, no, they're going to fight. With that movie, I was completely lost. I had no idea what the Joker was going to do next. I didn't know who was going to die, who was going to blow up, what he was going to kill, whatever. And then to have Two-Face come in there and add to the whole chaos of it all, I was really, really just enthralled with that film. And then, of course, the only time the bat suit makes sense, that he turns his head and they get rid of the bulletproof thing, because part of what makes Batman cool is that he is a normal guy. Something could happen. And when you give him complete bulletproof costume, then it doesn't matter if he gets shot because you know he's going to live. But when they change the costume and you're concerned about him and he can actually be in jeopardy and it kind of humanizes him more, the fact that he makes it through these adventures the way he does, it's more solid. It increases the intensity. And I know I said intensity a lot when it comes to this movie, but that is what I loved about it, was just up there, off the camera up there. But anyway, so to review, Mr. J's top 10 movies based on comic books: Superman, The Crow, Men in Black, Blade, 300, Batman Begins, Iron Man, Avengers, then X-Men 2, and The Dark Knight. Well, I think that's all. I've rambled on and on long enough. Tell you what, comment below. Let me know what you think. Email me if you have any questions. And thank you very much for watching the show. If you can, subscribe. Again, I love the interaction, so let's keep it going. Other than that, let's just wait for Captain America 2. Winter Soldier. Maybe he'll end up on the list. I really hope so. Woohoo! Captain America! Anyway, you guys have a nice one. Again, thanks, and I'll see you next time.